Welcome to the wild world of the diagnostic laboratory industry, where we focus on science, compliance, sales marketing, and self-mastery. Welcome to Lab Results with Blake. I'm your host, Blake Bork. ChatGPT. And man, have we heard a lot about that in recent weeks and months. And maybe it's just because I am obsessed with AI and how to use it and integrate it into my daily work life. But it seems like on my Facebook feeds and everywhere I go, there's ads for some type of a software, some type of a gadget, some type of a creative tool that's all OpenAI source code, and asking me to pay them money to help teach me what I need to know, so that way I don't miss out on the AI generation. And I believe them. I think this is one of the most important time periods in my technological life. I kind of missed the Y2K piece. I wasn't in healthcare whenever Barack Obama had passed the Affordable Care Act and made it mandatory that EMRs and EHRs, went into doctors' offices. That caused a big chasm in healthcare. I don't think people realize exactly what happened, but physicians literally went from treating patients in a paper process and treating them as people to a very standardized, sterile process that had them check boxes to make sure that the billing was done right and that CPT codes were used effectively. But it became the payer's way to make sure that they got all the information they needed to be able to pay the claim. So doctors are more focused a lot of times now on checking the boxes and making sure that those things are taken care of so they hit their quality metrics than they are caring for patients, right? And I think anybody who's been in an office with a computer and a laptop or a hospital that's been asked the same questions every single time a new person comes to talk to them understands what I'm talking about. You end up getting form fatigue because of the technology, right? Well, that happened. Right. And it was forced upon the industry. And I'm not saying that the industry isn't better for it. I'm not saying that the industry is worse for it. All I know is that I wasn't a part of the generation of people who built the software that allowed doctors' offices to do it better or the right way. I wasn't making money that way. At that time, in 2006, I was a banker. Right. In fact, I was a 26-year-old banker and had just gotten into private banking and helping physicians with their mortgages and with their home equity loans and their investment portfolios. And I thought I was hot shit, man, because of what I was doing. But I knew that they were all complaining about having to do this EMR thing and that they were willing to pay the penalty. OpenAI and ChatGPT is a little different, though. Right? Y2K in 2000 was all about fear. EMRs and EHRs and the Affordable Care Act was basically pushed upon us, and you had to do it, or otherwise you were going to have to pay a penalty or something like that. And then there was all these kickbacks that happened, and people were holding information hostage, and the interpolability between EMRs and HL7 interfaces. And it is what it is. This is different, though. This is a evolution of technology. This is the way that we did business before OpenAI and ChatGPT will be different than the way you do business after. And I really do believe that. And it's not like we're not on the bleeding edge of this phenomenon, right? We are on the leading edge of it because we are participating. There's things that are in beta and we're using it. I'm using it every day. And one of the things to also understand here is that there's not much difference between the person who has been using it for 2 months and a person who's been using it for 6 months. It's still super, super close. I started learning from a man. He introduced me to ChatGPT. He's one of my marketing coaches, a guy who helps me with funnel creation and has helped me understand headlines and how to pitch and how to convert. I mean, it's digital marketing, right? And you look for these gurus who do it well so you can model what you do after them because they're a proven commodity and it's a safe bet. instead of going out there and trying to recreate the wheel, you should look who is in your industry that is doing it great, or who is in your sector that's doing it great. It's hard to look inside of a lab right now, inside a diagnostic laboratory, and look at a particular company and say, man, they're doing digital marketing amazing. Those guys have set up webinar funnels and they're converting leads, and they have a team of salespeople who understand how to get ads that people are asking for more information, followed up with phone calls into Zooms and closed and implemented remotely. Like, there's not really that big of a push in diagnostic lab for that. There are in other areas of healthcare, though. I mean, there are areas of healthcare that have been running television commercials, DME, for decades and getting patients to call in. And that can be unscrupulous. It can be predatory. There's a lot of rules and regulations around that, as well as telemedicine. But there are these medical spas that are 100% cash only. There are these vanity panels that have come out, especially with pharmacogenomics and some of the higher end DNA type of testing that patients are willing to pay cash for. There are really unique tests inside of like tick-borne illness where patients don't have another choice besides to pay cash. So there's these segments of these laboratories who have carved out niches and have proven that patients are willing to pay cash money for their test. But for the majority, laboratories don't even know how to approach that. They're not even sure how to have that conversation, right? And so you look to the left and you look to the right. If you want to model an innovative way to run your business inside a lab, you probably aren't looking at other labs. You probably need to look inside of healthcare and people who actually deal with patients. But I don't think you look at LabCorp and Quest and try to do what they do, because they're the 800,000-pound gorilla in the room, and they've done it through sheer volume and just mass and lobbyists and payer relationships and who the hell knows what else. Paid fines to get to where they are. It's just the cost of doing business for them. If you're a mom and pop, you can't duplicate that. You can't model that. So if you're going to look at somebody to model, like I'm modeling my not my style, but I'm modeling my marketing practices over other coaches and other consultants in other high ticket type offers, in other areas where coaching and consulting is valued, and people are willing to pay for that knowledge, right? That's it. And so I can't find it inside a lab because I'm kind of one-on-one right now, one of one. There's not a lot of other people who do what I do in this sector. So I got to look outside of it, right? What ChatGPT what ChatGPT does for you, though, is it puts the ability for you to create at a high level. And again, there's not that big of a difference between you doing it for the next 2 months and somebody who's been doing it for 6 months. Because once that guy showed me what he was doing and I became obsessed, I passed him up. I went to one of his seminars. I literally flew to Tampa and I sat down in a room with 60 other people. On a Saturday, there's probably about 120 people in the room. Everybody paid to get there. And you have the hotel, you have the rental car expenses, you have everything. We're all there. And pretty much day one was the only original content. And I had already figured it out or did it. There was no new AI. There was no new strategies. There was a couple of other third-party type of strategies that were disclosed, but this stuff is so new. It's so now that once you get into it, you start learning it. The most valuable aspect of ChatGPT right now is just to start using it. So that way you can understand how to prompt and how to ask better questions and how to give better commands. It has made me a better communicator. Not just because I can give it ideas and it'll write my emails for me or to help me with sentence structure, but it does what you tell it to do. And if you don't do a good job explaining yourself, you're going to get shit results. If I do a poor job telling ChatGPT what I want to write about or what I want my podcast topic to be about, if I don't give it good frames and give it good instruction, or if I don't ask it to ask me questions, right? I've built a ChatGPT instance that has episodes of my podcast on it, that also has episodes of my sales training on it, that has transcripts from things that are important to me that I wanted to know, so that way it helps write in my language with my tonality. I mean, what I was able to do 60 days ago, there's no comparison to what I can do now. My time period to create has sped up so fast. And for a guy who suffers from shiny object syndrome like I do, a guy who is like swirl and on to the next thing, right? One of the problems is that we as creators, we have a vision for something. Visionaries suffer from this. We have a vision for something. So we get everybody up in a room and we tell the room what our vision is. And people get on the bus. And especially if you're paying them. If I got a room full of people who are paying me, I'm not expecting a lot of them to challenge my ideas. And that's one of the problems with rooms full of people who are paying you. Now you get in a room full of people who are paying to be in the room, not paying you. All of a sudden, you got some honest people in that room. Remember that as a laboratory executive, as a leader, when every single person who surrounds you is there for their paycheck, expect preservation is going to be one of their priorities. Trust me, you don't have a whole lot of cosmic bowling balls running around like Mr. Blake Bork, who's literally going to tell you the truth to the point where you're going to run him out of your company because you don't like what he's saying. Like, that's happened to me before. And it's because if you have integrity and you take a stand, it's not always going to be popular. Trust me on that one. So as you look at trying to get honest feedback, pay to get in some rooms so that way people tell you the truth. But with ChatGPT, what I'm able to do is I'm actually able to ask it the truth. I'm like literally like, hey, I need facts on 2 historical references that are going to reinforce my point of narcissism in the workplace. Give me a leader that was narcissistic. I'd also like for you to, give me a modern advertising campaign or a company that has talked about narcissism. And then I'd love a quote from Brené Brown on narcissism in leadership. And in 13 seconds, it comes back and I get it. And I have that information. Now that would normally, I'd give that assignment to somebody to do it. And they'd come back to me in like 36 hours and they'd give me a write-up. And I've already forgotten about what the hell I was talking about. The inspiration for the idea is gone. I no longer am thinking about it. I'm not in that place. I'm not in that frame. And so my work habits without ChatGPT make me rely on my speaking ability and my entertainment ability and my ability to wing it. And those things become a crutch. They stunt my growth because I'm not well-rounded in some other areas. ChatGPT fixes that for me. It does. It allows me to create more independently. I'm finding things out on my own about myself and how I want things done too. The problem with subbing out all of your marketing, the problem with having somebody else come in and write your copy is they're not you. They're not you. They don't have your mind. They don't have your message. And as much as they want to write like they are you, they're not you. If you're a lab leader, you got a vision for patient care. There's a reason why you got into this. And if you're training diagnostic laboratory sales reps, you better have patient care experience. You better be able to tap into an avatar. You better be able to drill deep into the clinical rationale of that test and be able to sell the effectiveness. You better love to serve doctors, right? I sat across the CEO of a laboratory one time, and he said some of the worst things I'd ever heard about doctors and how he didn't care what they thought. Didn't matter if his tests were wrong. He didn't care what they thought. There were a bunch of curse words out on the table, and I haven't been able to shake it out of my head because it's like, why are you in this business? Why are you even in lab? Right? And so when you're trying to create an idea and you're trying to create a message, and you have to go through all these other layers to get there and other people, it's never like landing right. The copy never lands exactly how you want it. What I've been able to get with ChatGPT is my words inside of my copy, my tonality, my stories, written and structured in a way that I couldn't get to even if I paid an editor to do it, because it would take too long for it to come back to me. So taking chat is a voluntary evolution for you. You can evolve your business. I want you to think about sales training. We had we paid a bunch of money for some training videos, and they were good and they're okay. We ran them through Grammarly and found out they were plagiarized. So we couldn't use them. Couldn't get the money back, but we couldn't use them. And that was disappointing, right? So using ChatGPT though, not even looking at the old videos, because the old videos, they didn't address the actual core problem with molecular diagnostics, which is doctors have to pitch this information to patients. Doctors need to be educated how to explain this to patients. They weren't written from a patient advocacy standpoint. They were written from a textbook. It was a textbook, which just makes sense because it was plagiarized. But when you look at the actual need for molecular diagnostic training videos, they need, or training in general, they need to be written in a way that can be explained to patients, because doctors are going to be explaining this to patients. So you got to give doctors examples of what this is going to do for a patient, and you need to name the patient. Patient's name needs to be Betty. She needs to be 56 years old. She needs to have a job. She needs to have children. She needs to have a car that she drives. She needs to have an illness. She needs to have a health history. She needs to have a BMI and a weight and a blood pressure and a pulse, right? She needs to have some type of medications that she's on, 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them. She has allergic reactions. She's got kids at soccer practice, or she works as a teacher. She's off in the summers. You have to paint a picture for who Betty is. So that way the doctor understands who this patient is and what this test is for. So that way they now can talk about the patient care because they've heard it from a patient standpoint. Do not underestimate the doctor as the pitch man for your laboratory's tests. You're not in the room with the doctor when they make a recommendation to actually do this test. 9 times out of 10, what happens is doctor leaves the room and the nurse comes back in and is afraid that the patient is going to get a high bill, so they don't do the test. I've seen this as a patient. I've seen nurses come in and not do the PCR test that we talked about and they've told me it's expensive. It's an expensive test. You don't need it. You don't have my wallet. You don't have my low deductible insurance that I pay for. I want the PCR test from my daughter. Don't tell me what's expensive or not. I've had multiple providers talk me out of PCR because they think it's expensive and it doesn't provide value. And I know that it does. And I know that it does because I've got the data for it and I've seen the impact and I have the patient case studies. Not only am I an owner of a laboratory and the CEO of a laboratory and a trainer inside of laboratories like throughout my career, I want it. I want it for my daughter, right? And so you have to argue it. I haven't been able to do that effectively because my writing skills communicating this stuff, my writing skills were never good enough for me to effectively, they just weren't, man. Like I'm sorry. I got a minor in English, but my written word is the weakest aspect of my game. The way I structure sentences and my spelling and I have great ideas on paper, but I've never been able to put them in a way that will impress somebody with copy. And that's changed, right? And still, we went through some iterations recently with my LinkedIn posting where we had too many emojis that were being done, and some folks that turned the copy over to. I was like, hey, look here, this looks good. This is what I want it to look like, but it didn't come out that way. So you constantly have to check this whenever you have a team of people who are writing for you or working with you. But ultimately, it's a good experience to go from not being able to write your own copy to being extremely proud over the language and the stories and the situations that's happening inside of your copy. And we're doing it now for lab brochures. We're doing it for our lab training videos. We're doing it for landing pages. We're doing it for websites. We are able to turn projects around very fast. And it's not because chat's doing it for us. It's because we have damn good ideas. We're smart about this. We know what converts. It's super important. If you're not a good salesperson, I'm telling you right now, you're gonna have a hard time getting ChatGPT to do prompts, because it's about prompting it to do things for you. And you have to have a good idea about what is going to sell and what good looks like. And so the cool thing about chat is it allows us to speed up with that, what it's going to look like to get there. In fact, you can even give it examples of what good is. So that way it's writing to that standard. So yeah, this sounds like a ChatGPT infomercial, and maybe I should send a video to them and say, hey man, I'd like to be your guys' pitch guy. But their source is open, man. You can build with them if you want to. I am telling you right now, you guys are missing out if you're not figuring out a way to get this into your lab's communication processes. I don't care if it's making images or if it's landing pages for funnels, if it's recruiting, if it's job descriptions, if it's SOPs. Don't fall asleep on the need to read every single word that comes out of it. This isn't a wait to the last minute bot. All right. So if you are a lazy person, if you are a last minute type of person, chat's going to be the death of you, because you're going to make a fool out of yourself when you don't even know what the hell you're turning in. You got to read it because it makes mistakes. You got to read it because it doesn't follow, and like a human, it doesn't follow instructions. If you wanted to write 1,500 words, it's going to give you 483 and hope you didn't check. I'm not even joking. I've had many conversations with it. Like, why do you keep giving me 400 words when I'm asking for 1,500? I need this to be 15 minutes long. Why are you? And then, oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to let you down. Give me another shot. Like, that's the response I get. So give it a shot. Hope this content is fresh and is landing well. If you have any questions about it, reach out to us. Specifically, man, if you want some examples of how to bring this type of technology into your laboratory, if you need help writing your sales copy, if you need help with your funnels, with your recruiting, if you need help with your training, reach out to us, because it's something that we definitely want to talk to more labs about as we're getting some success and we're seeing it. I'm telling you right now, the times where I've had a hard time working with a client is when they've hired me to do what they have always done. Somehow they've seen me and they've thought, if I get that guy to do what I've always done to be successful, which is go door to door and cold call and hire sales reps that have relationships. If I get Blake to convince sales reps that have relationships to come work for me, and they like Blake and they buy into his rah-rah bullshit, then I'm going to make a whole bunch of money. Let me try to get Blake on my team. That doesn't work. It don't work. They're not working for your laboratory to have a relationship with me. They're not working for your laboratory so that way they can bring you a whole bunch of business. You can lie to them and then screw them out of money. Like if I smell that, I'm not going to work with you anymore. And that's happened, unfortunately, a couple times. And so, but if you are into building a recruiting funnel for your lab, if you are into creating sales training for your laboratory that's clinically focused, that matters and is meaningful, if you're open to having videos that walk your clients through the ordering process and allow you to be there for them in a offline mode when you're not there, so that way they never have a reason not to order, and they always know how to fill out your forms, and they always know how to read your reports, and they always have the right contact information to reach out when they do have a question. Like if you want those types of systems built in your laboratory so that way you can scale, right? If you want high quality salespeople who are in love with selling and you want to build a culture of connection, I'm your guy. Reach out to me. We'd love to have a conversation with you. That's the secret to success in lab today, is being honest, telling the truth, being yourself. Because I promise you, you are not the only person who has ever lied to a sales rep. They have been lied to before, and they can see straight through you. The only thing you're going to do by lying to a salesperson as a lab executive is give them every excuse in the world to screw you over. They're going to become a victim of your lies, and then they're going to take advantage of you, and you are going to feel like you're a victim of their lies, so you're going to try to take advantage of them. And that is toxic, but it's what I see in a lot of laboratory relationships, and it's what I wish I was never a part of ever again. And so if you are a lab leader, a lab executive who needs to have a positive sales culture and people who tell the truth, and go out and get doctors that care about patient care and will value your reports and say thank you and will be grateful and appreciative for your services and for your laboratory, where you can have an open, real dialogue with them. Those relationships actually exist. I know it because I've had them. I've seen it. We've developed them. We've gestated them. We've nurtured them. We've birthed them. We've raised them. Like those things don't happen overnight. And the worst part about it is when a good salesperson who has those relationships gets matched up with a lab leader who doesn't appreciate them, they end up ruining a decade of that salesperson's work before that lab leader decided to lie to them. It's a crime. And I've seen it. And I don't want to see it anymore. So let's rise above the BS. Let's treat each other fairly. Let's shoot each other straight. And let's look to pull greatness out of one another. Let's collaborate inside of this industry, and let's work together to be able to bring great patient care. And I think things like ChatGPT can actually do that. I think being on the leading edge of a technology like that allows us to be able to create and to research and to think and to plan and to organize and to schedule and to ask questions, just so our own brainstorming sessions work better. So we can rough out our own ideas, so we can get straight about what we have to do Sunday, right? Sunday, after the kids go to bed, I'm on ChatGPT and I'm writing and planning my work for the next week, just so that way I can read it back and I can see it. It's an amazing thing. I hope this inspired you to learn something new, to get onto chat. It's worth $20 a month, man. I'm telling you, dude, don't sleep on the power it can bring to you. It's more than just funny poems and songs. All right. I've talked enough about it, guys. Thanks for hanging with me. Like this, share this, smash this, give it some likes, share it with somebody who you know needs the message. But share it with a laboratory who's looking for a good, honest consultant to help them grow their lab sales. You guys be great. You've been listening to Lab Results with Blake, with your host, Blake Bork. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Remember, greatness is contagious.